amount of evidence for the reality of the Alagash abductions for any other subject, any mundane subject, in a court of law, you could hang a person probably. But because of the bizarre nature of the case, that's not going to happen. People aren't going to accept that evidence, although the evidence is there.
Heard it all, everything. Oh, they must have been on LSD, and people have said, I don't believe a word you say, you're nuts, you're crazy, you belong in a straitjacket. And I say, well, it's part of my life, I can't deny it. And one of the things that's really weird is that you find yourself getting used to the idea that you've been abducted, and that's weird in itself.
This happened. I'm just skeptical about the abduction part of the story. To that extent, it wasn't like a visceral reality experience. It wasn't like a true memory. And that's what I had trouble with for years and years and years. Certainly, I shared the experience with the rest of the guys, and they might take that as remembering a real experience, but it's not. The encounter is real. I know that.
Strand Podcast.
Executives, Coastal Bend, and Corpus Christi, Texas. And you're listening to the Alien Strand Podcast with Donald Ledesma. Buying or selling, visit me at kellygreenrealtor.com or visit me on my Facebook page, Kelly Green Realtor. See you there.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Alien Strand Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Ledesma, and welcome back. Welcome back to episode number 47. This one's called the Alagash 4. And I really missed you guys. You know, I skipped a week. I ended up going on a small little vacation with my fiance. And, just decided to get away for a little while through the 4th of July weekend. So I'm hoping you guys had a really nice, enjoyable 4th of July. Had some nice fireworks going on. Spent some time with your families. Being safe, of course. And just enjoying the day. But before we get going, I'd like to welcome everybody to Alien Strand Podcast. You can catch us on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and alienstrand.com. You can also download the Alien Strand app that we have. It's a free download. They're on your Google Play. And it's a player. It's almost like your Spotify, your iHeartRadio, but you have your own. Alien Strand has their own player. So you can download that, right? It's free. And then you can catch every episode as it comes out, right? Like the one today. You'll be notified right away. You'll be the first one to jump on the bandwagon with it. And you'll be able to comment as soon as you log in and everything, put your information in. You'll be able to comment on each episode. So just like I say with all my episodes, click a follow, a heart there on iHeartRadio or on Spotify, click a follow there as well. On all the other apps as well. We're on 22 platforms already. So Alien Strand is growing. and it's growing every day, and I really appreciate that from you guys and everybody that's out there that's sharing Alien Strand. There's a few podcaster sites that we're on as well that we're getting out, and they're actually listening to the show. So welcome you guys, and thank you for listening to the Alien Strand podcast. So like here, we talk about everything, aliens, Bigfoot, abductions, everything you can think of, we talk about it all. And it's just, an FYI for you guys, so you guys can get a lot of information as it comes out, right? Even in the older stories, we always try to put, things together on all these abductions and UFOs in the sky that we've been seeing, lately, lately on Facebook. My God, there've been so many good videos out there. I don't know if you guys have been watching that, so if you can, go to our Facebook there on Alien Strand. Just click a search there if you haven't got there yet. Follow us there, and you'll see a lot of the good stuff that we've been posting out there for you guys. A lot of good videos, and a lot of them are just a lot of general knowledge and general information, if you're just starting off in ufology. So you get to see all the good stuff that's happening out there in our skies and in space, or, everywhere around the country, not just the United States. We have a lot of listeners from, I think, 7 to 8 countries right now. They're actually listening to Alien Strand. And thank you guys for that. You can always send me the videos or whatever on instant message. Send me videos there or through my email, or the phone number. You can click that little call now button if you want to. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can just click that. It'll call me directly to my cell phone, and we'll get you on the show. All right. So, we have a lot of good things coming up here in the future. I have a new guest that's going to be coming up here next week. Possible hybrid, he claims. And we're going to have a nice conversation with him. And, also later on, I think about in August, I'm going to interview another author. And they're going to talk about their book, and it's a couple. So we're going to get them on the show later on. And, I just appreciate all the feedback that we're getting for Alien Strand and all the things that are out there for us to learn about, right, every day. So, I decided to talk about, a lot of controversial stuff as well. When I dug through this story, the Alagash 4, it has some controversial aspects of it, because it is an abduction story and it is an encounter story at the same time, right? So, and I just wanted to get this out there. You're going to see a lot of conflicting information on this story, and but I just wanted to get it out to you guys so that way you can hear for yourselves if you haven't heard it, or you're going to hear it right now from Alien Strand. And we're just going to, try to get all the facts and the information that these gentlemen went through on their story to get you to think and understand what exactly they went through, right? And these guys have been friends for a long time, many years. It's probably about 40 years now, I think, has gone by, since this incident, because it happened in 1976. So that's quite some time ago, but their story got out everywhere, right? And I saw it pop up on my feeds a couple of times. I was just trying to think about, well, should I put this out there, yes or no? And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to put it out there, because it's like a 3-to-1 kind of story, almost 4-to-1, but one of them's a little off about it, but as anybody else would be, it's just one of those things that happens. So this happened in 1976 in the summertime, and we had 4 friends, right? And they were all art students at the time. One of them was named Charlie Fault, Chuck Rack, and Jack and Jim Wiener. So they were Jack and Jim are twins, right? Identical twins, actually. If you see a photo of them, they're identical. So these 4 friends, they decided to, hey, let's take this camping trip. Let's go fishing. They all like the outdoorsy kind of thing, right? So they said, okay, let's plan a week trip out there. So they were traveling north from Boston to the wilderness there in Maine, right? And they had it all planned out. They set up camp out there. And they were having a good time. Almost a week had went by. They were just camping, fishing, doing their, having the guy-to-guy talk, probably drinking a few beers out there, just enjoying the evenings out there in the daytime. Having a little vacation. So after about nearly a week of camping and fishing, on day 5, they camped on this, they decided to move, and they camped on this place called Smith Pond. And it was kind of isolated. It had like broken tree stumps, sticking out of the water. It was just kind of in the wilderness out there in the middle of nowhere. And, they all talked about it, and they all wanted to do an evening, a night fishing thing, right? So they all talked about it, and, they said, well, there's no moon in the sky tonight. It's almost pitch dark out there that night. I guess there was some overcast. And they said it was super dark that night. So they decided to make a fire, right, on the land, right there by the water. And they grabbed a bunch of branches. They wanted to make a huge fire. So because it was so dark out there, they couldn't see. They were actually making a beacon for themselves. So that way when they went out to the water, they knew where their campsite was, right? So they put this fire together, right? And they went ahead and went out to the water. They all got in this little canoe, all 4 of them. They decided to head out to the water. They said this fire was pretty high, though. They could still see it from where they were at. They said it was about maybe 4 or 5 feet high, so it was a pretty large fire where they were going to be able to, they knew it was going to burn for about 3 or 4 hours. They put enough wood on there to do that because they didn't know how long they were going to be out there, right? So they paddled about several hundred yards into the pond. Charlie was in front, the twins were in the middle, and Chuck was in the back. So Chuck was watching the sky, as, the guys were having a conversation. He was just kind of listening and just looking around the sky, wasn't really paying too much attention. When all of a sudden he yelled out, he said, "Holy mackerel! What the F is that?" So at that moment, they all turned around and they saw this huge ball of light rising above the trees. Imagine that. It's pitch dark out there. They see this huge bright light just start immense from the ground up behind the trees, start rising up. Caught all their attention. At first, they all said that they all thought it was like a plane that was like landing or just flying over. But the only thing that threw that idea off was that this ball of light had no sound. So they knew that it wasn't an airplane, right? They said that it was a bright, luminous yellow and white color. And it had kind of a liquid appearance. And Chuck was like, wow. He says, man, when I was seeing this thing, I was like in a sense of euphoria looking at this thing. Never seen anything like that before in my life, he says. And all of a sudden, the UFO started, or this craft, started approaching them. And it was about 100 yards from them. And then it stopped. So at that moment, they all looked at it. They were kind of like in shock at that moment because they didn't know what to do next, right? So Charlie gets out his flashlight and said, let me shine the light on that and see what it does. So he clicked on his flashlight, pointed it at the bright object that was there, and instantly it returned a beam of light that covered their canoe. Mind you, this canoe's a pretty big one. It's like 16 feet. So they said the bright light covered the whole canoe. They said that that light was so intense, it was blinding. And they all thought, man, we just communicated with it. And they figured that it had some kind of, some sort of intelligence, right? Because it shot the beam back at them. They all thought, wow, this is real. They knew they weren't dreaming, right? So they said the craft started descending towards them. At that point, they all kind of got startled. And they all started paddling as fast as they could to get away from this craft, because it was starting to approach them closer and closer. After it stopped, they started moving a little bit closer. So Jack starts yelling while they're paddling this canoe harder than hell. He starts yelling, it's getting closer. It's getting closer. And then all of a sudden they said, it was gone. That was the last thing that they remembered. And they were back on shore. But Chuck, he always remembered that he saw it leaving this craft. He saw it leaving and fading out. So basically, he saw it take off. You know, at that point, they were all exhausted, right? Because of paddling that boat as fast as they could to get the hell away from this thing, right? So they all started stumbling back to the camp, exhausted. At that time, they all noticed when they got to the fire that it was just embers were just sitting there. And they knew that fire was supposed to last for hours. But that night, when they got back to the camp, after seeing all that and experiencing that they could remember, they discussed it no further that night. Then in 1978, 2 years later, memories began to emerge. So Jim Weiner, he was having problems sleeping. He was even having seizures, right? Because he was exhausted, he was tired. This was 2 years later. And he was having nightmares of creatures with large eyes. They just kept haunting him over and over and over, so he couldn't sleep. He said he kept feeling like hands, the little hands on him, as they poked him and probed with these instruments all over him. He remembers them touching him all over his body. Remember, they're naked. Well, he was naked. That's what he's saying in his dream. So in 1980, a few years after that, he ended up telling his twin brother about that nightmare. And the brother was kind of in shock, right? Because they hadn't really spoken about none of this stuff. So then the brother told him, his twin, he said, so have I. The same dreams. So I believe that he went to the doctor, which was Jim, and the doctor told him, he goes, you're having, because he finally told the doctor, Jim did, said, hey, look, I'm having these dreams, and he told him the dreams. And the doctor even told him, look, it sounds like you've been abducted. So he was introduced to this ufologist, a researcher at the time. His name was Ray Fowler, right? And this gentleman, Ray Fowler, got his story under hypnosis and decided to get hypnosis for all four of them, the gentlemen that were there in this incident, right? Because he wanted to know further what happened to them. And after they all went over this hypnotherapy, the story got out. This was in 1990. That's when the story emerged. They were all getting, interviews, stories about what had happened to them. They were all telling the same stories at the time. It was all over. But one of the gentlemen in that story, he started remembering that when that light hit the boat, that he noticed Chuck was gone. And he was looking for him in the water, looking all the way around the boat for him. And these are Jack's words. He says in their stories, they all remember laying on their backs, on a table, seeing these creatures look at them, right? And doing examinations to them. He said they had large eyes. They almost looked like insects. Or goggles. He goes, you couldn't see their eyes. He said their clothing was like spandex. And they had 4 fingers. But it was a weird shaped hand. The way the hand moved and the way the hand grabbed their hands or touched them, it moved in a certain way that a normal human being's hand does not react or move. Different muscle structure, different bone structure. So they say that after the examinations, that these extraterrestrials or aliens, greys possibly, move them into another room. They said that in this room, they were all sitting there and they knew something was going to come next. They just didn't know what it was. And these creatures were all the way around them still. One of them said, I don't know what they were going to do to us next. He goes, I thought that was it. I was a goner. He said, I thought they were going to rip me open, just kill me at that moment. I didn't think I was going to live. I just wanted to get the hell out of there. That's what he said. But then all of a sudden, he said, they saw a super bright light all the way around them. And they said something started happening to them, right? So almost like in that moment, the light got so bright and intense in there that I guess it was a beam of light lifted all of them up, or one by one actually, and they can remember the aliens putting them back in the canoe, and that the aliens were positioning them in the way that they last remembered, right? So they were adjusting their positions, like in a sitting position or in a laying position, or wherever they were last. And then one of them says that they saw one in the water waist deep. He says they were having a hard time with Jim because he was heavier. They were trying to lift him. He says, but when we looked towards the shore, because his canoe was close to the shore, that they saw the other two guys getting beamed on shore where they were standing. So, and if you remember, that's when they woke up, and that's all they remembered when they first encountered this craft or this bright light or whatever it was at the very beginning of the story. It was just bam, just like that. But when they went under hypnosis, they started remembering all the details that they saw of how exactly they were put in position in the boat and on land. You know, you hear a lot of these alien abductions, and this to me was a first of I've heard of that they actually remember them being repositioned back the way they were, right? Which brings us to our topic that's always in an alien abduction, is that they always have that loss of time, right? Everybody has experienced that loss of time. So they're kind of figuring that they possibly have at least 3 hours of missing time. Because they figured that the fire that they made was going to be at least 3 to 4 hours. Remember, when they got back, that fire was already embers. It was already burned out totally. So they were gone for quite some time. You know, and they could never understand exactly what and why. What they saw and why they experienced what they experienced. They never talked about them having any scars or anything like that from the instruments that they were used on them. And it possibly might be in a book. I didn't see it in this story. I wish I would have. But this story has every piece of that puzzle is in this story that we hear about. Right? Nighttime. In the middle of nowhere. Bright light. Euphoria. Loss of time. Not remembering anything. Nightmares. Getting sick over it. This is your standard alien abduction of what somebody goes through when they are abducted. or they experience this kind of traumatic effect from what happened to them. Not everybody can handle things like this. It's like a PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. Some people can handle it, some people can't. And out of all four, one of them couldn't. When the dream started getting worse and worse and worse for him, right? So you got to think about that. Poor guy, he was probably going nuts. Couldn't sleep. I don't know if you've ever been awake for 24 hours or longer. And you can't think straight, right? After 24 hours, it feels like you don't belong in that day. Because you've been awake. Your mind is tired. Your body's tired. Imagine going through that for 3-4 days. It's going to get you sick. So this poor guy started having seizures because of it. And that's the only reason why this story got out. Because of this guy getting sick like this. If it wasn't for him getting sick, we probably wouldn't even know about it. Once the doctor pointed him into this ufologist's direction for us to get more of the story. Out of all four, one of them couldn't grasp the concept. Even though he went through hypnosis, he kept on saying, well, I don't think the abduction happened. He says, but the experience of the encounter did happen. He knows that for a fact because he says that for himself. And that's why people say, well, these guys hoax this stuff. They made it up and all this crap. No, it's just because of that one person's almost a denial what took place. Maybe he didn't want to tell his story like that. Maybe he just wanted to keep that private for himself. But once the story got out, well, he was getting hounded. And he had no choice but to tell the story. But out of all four, he's the only one that's going to say the encounter did take place, as far as them seeing the UFO, experience what they saw with the flashlight, the fire, everything took place. But he claims that the abduction did not take place. And of course, these stories are for you to decide whether it took place or didn't. But a lot of the credibility and interviews and the books and everything that happened to them, even the recordings of them being under hypnosis, it's all recorded. There's no denying that something did happen to them. It's just a story that we have to imagine what exactly took place with these gentlemen. I mean, did they ever go back camping again? Or after all that? Were they always scared of being out there alone in the dark? After this encounter? You always hear people say, oh, take me. I don't know about that. I don't know if you want that. And I've talked about it on many of my episodes. You don't know if you're going to come back. You don't know if they're going to use you for food. And that's just the reality of the encounters and being around extraterrestrials. The grays, these kind. The bug-looking ones. Not the human-looking ones. So I thought this story was important, and I wanted to bring it out to you guys. Because it has a lot of backbone behind it of what took place. And I'll post the links to this story so you guys can see it for yourselves. I'll post some pictures up of the guys and the drawings that they did themselves. Remember, they were artists. There's a few drawings that are out there that they did of what they saw. That way you can see it for yourself. You know what exactly took place with them. And I'm glad I got this story out to you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I hope you got a lot of information out of it, as I did. Another story to tell to your friends, if you didn't already know. But if you guys can, visit us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, alienstrand.com, and we're on 22 platforms. Go check us out there. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can call 361-245-8000. Again, that's 361-245-8000. And I'm really glad you guys stuck around for today's podcast and been waiting for it. I've been kind of excited to bring another one to you guys. And don't forget, next week, we're going to have a special guest going to come on. And it's going to be a Q&A. And he's from France, right? He does speak English, so we're going to be able to ask him some questions. And maybe ask the hybrids a question too, you know, whatever they've been going through. There's a lot of information that we need to get out there, you know, and a lot of these people, you know, they want to get their information out. And I applaud every single one of them for coming on the show and just telling their story. That's because that's what they're supposed to do, you know. And they feel that after they do that, it's a big relief on them, you know, for them to do it, you know. And it's not for entertainment. A lot of it's for you guys to understand the real factor of what they go through every day. So, until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.
This happened. I'm just skeptical about the abduction part of the story. To that extent, it wasn't like a visceral reality experience. It wasn't like a true memory. And that's what I had trouble with for years and years and years. Certainly, I shared the experience with the rest of the guys, and they might take that as remembering a real experience, but it's not. The encounter is real. I know that.
What's up, everybody? This is Osborne, and you're listening to the Alien Strand podcast with Donald Ledesma. My new project EP, Takeoff, will be available everywhere music is sold very soon. You can keep up to date with me at facebook.com/OsborneLid and on Instagram at OsborneLid with 3 T's. See you there.